Hello, everyone, and welcome to not the bottom, probably the middle, somewhere in the shaft of the pit. This is Tales from It, the aforementioned pit. I'm your pit explorer, Mr. Michael Swaim, and I'm always blessed to be joined by someone in the pit because damn, the pit would be rough on your own. And I think that's the whole point of Tales from the Pit. Here with me is my gal pal, Miss Katie Willert, the divine Miss Katie Willert, I think we can say. Hello.
Ooh, I like it. I like it.
Hi, Katie.
Hi, Michael. How are you this morning?
Welcome back to the pit. I'm good. I have strong survivor's guilt doing this episode. Let me explain a bit about why we're doing this episode. People have been asking lately, where did Tales from the Pit go? And I've been responding privately via Twitter DMs and stuff that I'm in a really good place right now mentally, and no one wants to hear that. Because I feel like Tales from the Pit exists to normalize these experiences so people are more free to reach out when they're undergoing crisis and undergoing severe challenges. And I haven't been lately. But a bunch of people responded, that's malarkey. We really would love to hear a check-in, especially people undergoing an addiction journey. They want to hear a check-in about how things are going with our addictions.
Right.
So,
can I just say, though, is that life is not entirely pit. Even if you are having bad mental health, even if you are in addiction, life is not all pit. There are moments of, like, good, and then you trip and fall back into the pit again. Like, I know for me and my journey in recovery and my journey as a human, you need to know that the better parts come, because then you'll fall in the pit again and then you'll be bummed, but then you'll remember hey, it's not always like this, you know?
Oh, see, there's an update then. That's substantive data. I haven't mastered that because I still, I definitely have the thing where when I undergo a good period, especially of mental stability, where it doesn't matter what the external circumstances are, I'm good. Like when my mental kingdom is in order, I will think, man, I'm invincible. Like I'm untouchable. When my brain works right and I banished or I found the right medication mix or whatever, I'm golden now. It's always going to be this way. Then I get depressed and I go, I lost it. Damn. Well, this is the depression that will last until I die. There's no digging out of this pit. I always think whatever's in front of me is the thing, is like, it is that way now, the end. And I don't know, I mean, I'm talking to my therapist about why I think that or that way, but you're able to remind yourself when things are good that don't get too invested in this, there will be bad times, and then vice versa.
Yeah,
that?
I think for me, in terms of recovery now, the pits and the pits and the hills aren't so giant. Mm-hmm. It's a little more kind of like someone once described it as a carousel. You know, where it's kind of like, you know how the horses go up and down a little bit.
As you go around, the horses also go up and down. I got you.
But it's not like a crazy roller coaster. I'm doing some really great pantomime. You guys can't see, but Michael can. And to just know that, to not ascribe meaning to the good and the bad, quote unquote good and bad, because it's like when life's rocking, I used to be like, oh, it's 'cause of me. I'm doing this. And then when things are bad, it's like, oh, it's 'cause of me. I'm doing this. I'm a piece of shit. I'm the worst, And the truth is it's neither of those things are true. I'm just a human existing. And
that's a huge revelation. Yeah. The same reason that Elon Musk somehow deludes himself into thinking that he's worth that much and he must be such a good person, because otherwise how would he have all this money? That fundamental attribution error, I find most people who don't end up that privileged, they use that to beat up on themselves. They're like, why aren't I Elon Musk? I must be not good, right? Or I would be rich and my life would be in order, and I'd have the perfect family and or like 2.5 kids and all this shit.
Right.
Whatever you define success as, you start to think, man, the barriers between me and that must just be that I find a lot of people go this route. I'm not hustling hard enough, or I'm broken in some way.
Something's fundamentally wrong with me as a human.
Be aware that stuff's pretty stacked against everyone. Or like life is just tricky, dude.
Yeah, and like that's like fundamentally just like having your house in order is it. Mm-hmm. That's it. That's all we can hope for, is like to just not have chaos all the time. And sometimes things will happen that will throw our lives in a chaotic loop, right? Death, breakups, financial things, whatever. But like trying to just accept the present moment and just kind of do what the next indicated action is until you're through it. Like that's really all we can hope for, that we're generally relatively happy and grateful. And when we're sad, we feel our emotions, or angry, we feel our emotions, and then we move through them back to happy, then back to sad, then excited, then angry. Like that's, I think, the problem with social media, and then just the giant wealth divide and all of this, is that we're aware of all of these possibilities, right? That someone can have $1 bajillion or whatever, and we listen to Elon Musk because of fucking Twitter, and he has a mouthpiece, and we're aware of this human, and then we're aware of where we sit in relation to this human,
relative to that, yeah.
And then we make a judgment about ourselves and our worth and our existence. And it's like, currently I'm trying to live my life as if social media just didn't exist. I'll go on a little bit at the end of the day, but I'm trying not to interact with Twitter and Instagram, and although Instagram is less
you're all
terrible.
TikTok.
Yeah, just TikTok 24/7.
Constant all day, yeah.
But I'm trying to like approach it as more of like this isn't a given, right? TikTok is, like social media is not like a prerequisite of being a human. I think we believe it is. It's not. And what's ironic is the only tweet that I've ever had go viral went viral during this period. I walked out of Mocha, tweeted about contemporary art on a lark, logged out of the app. Then the next morning, my best friend Caroline gets in the car with me and she's like, "Oh my God, your tweet." And I was like, "What?" And she was like, "Some libertarian got a hold of this thing and then people started retweeting it, and there are a bunch of quote tweets, and it's like I think it's like almost 90K likes and like whatever. And I don't care," which is kind of not, it's kind of a nice feeling of like, meh. But like, it's that thing of, these are all metrics that we are holding ourselves to that don't mean anything. They don't mean anything. They don't mean anything.
Oh, I have a terrible problem with, because Twitter in a way is a place to showcase your comedy writing skills, because it is like arguing. It's very similar if you're on comedy Twitter, if you curate your thing like I do, that it's weighted towards comedy writers and comedians, then it does feel like being in a big writer's room where you're trying to shout your joke out and get attention and see, am I funny, daddy, please tell me, and the voice in my brain's very guilty of like, I definitely think any comedy writer who is basically me, like schlubby white guy with a beard, nerd, pop culture comedy writer who has more followers than me on Twitter, my brain tells me, oh, well, that guy must be 12% funnier than you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or, oh, you're funnier than this guy, because you're basically the same guy, but he has less followers, so you must be funnier. What will always haunt me is the only tweet I've ever had go viral was like, hey, what's your favorite candy that they don't make anymore? So it's like just like a general icebreaker. And I'm like, no, I'm funny. I'm clever. Look at me for that.
Well,
appreciate me for the thing I want you to. Yeah.
That is perfect evidence that it really is not based on anything real. You know, like
it's based on algorithms, which is this mercurial shifting. Yeah, the point is none of these numbers should make you feel full of worth or not. It's your value to the network and the people that you're actually connected to. Not that we don't connect through social media. Social media is just a thing, right? I've had so many meaningful connections forged through social media.
100%. It is a tool, but it's not like the end all be all, I guess is my.
There's a lot of extra noise in there.
Yeah.
For sure. And I mean, think about this. You don't have to ever access the internet to be a living human being, but doesn't that seem unimaginable?
It's been interesting. It's been interesting, this period of time that I'm actively choosing to like be more thoughtful about my interaction on the internet. I find I don't really miss it.
But does that include, I'm saying like when you want to know information, you don't look it up. When you want to go somewhere, you don't use the GPS. You like.
No, I mean, I'm talking about like social media, but I've been doing a fair amount. I've been doing a fair amount of.
We lived before the internet. When we were kids, there was no internet. Isn't that crazy?
It is crazy. I think about the fact that like my little brother, he's 11 and he just got his first girlfriend. And they became boyfriend and girlfriend last week and we were FaceTiming and talking about it. And then we FaceTimed yesterday. He was like, I think my girlfriend's cheating on me. I'm like, what makes you think that? And he goes, well, she keeps leaving me on red on our text messages. And I'm like, what? I'm like, she goes to a different school. I'm like, maybe she's busy, Chris. Like, but this internet like world, this nomenclature, this like instant gratification, instant connection with other people, like that he's worrying about that at 11 years old, that his girlfriend left him on red, didn't respond right away. Like,
yeah,
it's painful. It makes me hurt.
Well, yeah. Well, I don't know. Things become more complex and more sophisticated as time goes forward. So the new generation will definitely be more sophisticated than there's more detail in their lives than we had to contend with. Just like if you go back to our grandparents' generation, their lives seem quaint and simple to us. That just keeps going. One wonders if there's a limit to the human ability to a culture, like how fast paced and complex and how short of an attention span can you have? Like, what about people 1,000 years from now? But speaking of ADHD, which I recently got diagnosed with, let's get back on track because I want to talk about, something I've relied on the internet for in this time is to keep in touch with the people who are my support system when it comes to alcoholism specifically, but addiction generally. And let's check in, since I guess you don't do social media. There's the segue I was looking for.
Good job.
You don't do social media. This is how your fans will hear, your fans and people that love you need to hear how you're doing. So I'm 27 months sober from alcohol, which is great. I'm quit smoking cigarettes much later than that.
That's fine.
And I haven't smoked weed for 3 weeks.
Yay!
So those are just stats. How I'm doing is, and I think the big revelation for people, I talked about stuff seeming impossible. I think it's important to note that when I was in my drinking, I have a prodigious imagination, but I did not imagine it was possible that I would go a day without drinking ever again. I couldn't. It seemed unimaginable in a incomprehensible way, where I was just like, I just don't know what that would be like. And now I don't drink and I don't think about it and it doesn't matter, which is great. I will say it's not a perfect, I'm not checking in to say, and we're done here, conquered, because for me, and then I want to hear certainly, Katie, your experience, what resonates, what doesn't, what's different, what's the same. But for me, this has been a long, slow process of whittling down. I just was able to not drink because drinking, the consequences were so immediate and dire. It does help that is poison and it tastes like poison and it makes you sick. Like that, it was helpful for me to eventually break that chain. But the addiction demon, like the fact that I get addicted to things, I've made very little progress with that. Like, we're not out of the woods. I just did weed instead. And then I was like, well, these cigarettes are going to kill me, so I got to stop. So now I only have weed. And now I don't smoke weed, but I drink a pot of coffee a day and eat way too many sweets. So it's like, what are you going to do? And I was talking to our mutual friend, David Bell, and he's like, you're not going to do anything, dude. Everyone is like that. Human beings need treats constantly. You just shift it onto something. And I'm like, no, I think I can actually get discipline, or I think I could one day kill the beast inside me that is the addiction monster. Where do you sit on all this, Katie? How's it going for you? How long you been sober, and how's it going for you? Where are you now?
Okay, let's see. I looked at the app. I have 8.83 years of sobriety.
Woo!
So that's sober from drugs and alcohol.
Yeah, the real sober. I know, I fudge mine.
No. Hey. You'd be way worse off if you were drinking. So
for sure.
I'm just super happy you're not drinking. And you'll get wherever you need to get in whatever amount of time you need to get there. Everybody's situation is different, so whatever. Yeah. But like, I recently had a breakup and started smoking cigarettes again. And, every once in a while, my best friend jokes, she's like, every 2 years, Katie will smoke for a month and a half and then stop. And that's pretty much it. Like, something will go down that I just want to garbage up my body. I know it's bad. I want to do something that's bad, but my sobriety is super important to me, so I'm not going to drink. I'm not going to use drugs. I know that those won't solve the problem. I also know that cigarettes won't solve the problem, but at least I can do something like bad and nasty and feel kind of like cool and bad and gross about it. And then I reach
and like revel in your grief or whatever. Yeah. Be like, I feel so bad. I'm hurting my body. Yeah.
Essentially, it is self-harm, but like, because anybody who started smoking after the 60s knows that it's not good for you.
No, it's bad.
But they don't affect me from the neck up. It's not a mind-altering substance, so whatever. And the truth is, I have found in my sobriety that addiction is a whack-a-mole, right? You stop doing one thing, you start doing another, and it's kind of just like, for me, as long as it's not drugs or alcohol or like physical self-harm, like cutting myself or whatever, then it's okay. It's fine. Like, progress, not perfection, right? I'm never going to get this thing totally totally taken, care of. I'm never going to be cured of alcoholism. Like, it's always going to be there, even if I don't drink, And like, the way in which my alcoholism manifests itself is a lot of zoning out. I have watched the entirety of Criminal Minds through at least 5 times, maybe 6. It is a 15-season show with 22 episode seasons.
44-minute episodes?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I'll just watch it, and it won't. At this point, I know everything that happens in every episode. Like, I know who the unsub is the moment the episode starts. Like, I know. And I hit a bottom recently, which is part of why, because you can hit bottoms in sobriety and not drink or use. Like, you can hit emotional bottoms, spiritual bottoms, that sort of thing. And like, I hit a bottom where I just moved into my apartment, and all I would do is lay on my chaise lounge and watch Criminal Minds all day, and my shoulders would be so tense because I would be laying in a weird position, and I wouldn't leave my house, and then I'd get up and go to bed at like midnight, and I'd lay in my bed and not be able to fall asleep because I hadn't expended any energy the entire day, and then I'd just lay and be uncomfortable, and then I'd get up at 9, and then I just hit a bottom where I'm like, I don't want this to be what my life is. Like I have the power of choice in this situation. And like, what do I want to, cause I'm not working consistently right now, like producing. And I'm like, I have 3 days. I have choice. Like, what do I want to do with this time? Cause I don't always have time like this. And so,
Yeah.
I tried to transmute one of my defects into an asset, which is, I'm very type A. And sometimes that can be super, not great for me, but I decided to use my power for good and not evil. And I made myself a syllabus essentially for the next month where I want to be more consistent about my art practice. I want to be, and now I consider myself like an artist full time. And because that's how I spend my days. And, part of this thing was you don't get to watch Criminal Minds. Like, you can watch shit, but it has to be stuff you haven't seen before. And it has to be after 6 p.m. Like, I get up at 6, do my spiritual practice, make myself breakfast, get ready, make art from 8 to noon. And which I ended a little early for you, Michael, to record this. 8 to noon.
This is art.
It is. It's communication, and that's what art is. And make myself lunch, and then I go to a coffee shop because it's important for me to get outside of my house and see other people and interact with other humans. And I go and I drink a coffee and I read, and I have a reading list for this next month of books that I've wanted to read about creativity and process. And then I hang out with friends, and I go to a park and read. I have a folding chair in my fucking back of my car, and I sit in the sun because, especially now that it's getting dark so early, I need to feel the sun on my skin. And I put my feet in the grass, and I hang out with the people that I love, and I come home, and then I can dick around on Instagram a little bit if I want, or hop on Twitter or watch something on the TV. And then at 9, I start getting ready for bed, and I turn on a guided meditation on YouTube at 9:30, and I'm asleep by 10:30, and I get up the next day and I do it again. And I really like this. I'm like, this is how I want to spend my days. And I think that's the gift.
How are you?
What?
How are you accomplishing hanging out with people you love so every day? Because that's tough for me, literally, to find the time and get the people. I just tried to have a board game night yesterday, and it's impossible to get people to come over at a particular time now that we're all in our mid-30s.
Well, that's the thing for me is my afternoons are kind of open. So I watched Survivor on Wednesday nights with my friend Paul, and we Zoom with our friend Whitney, who's in Laguna Beach. And
gotcha. Okay. So still involving Zoom and whatnot.
Oh yeah. There's all sorts of
I was
stuff.
imagining, I'm like, did the pandemic not touch you? You're just out here with your feet in the grass, seeing people.
No, I mean, it's
okay.
We're all by people, I mean my best friend and my mother. And, I'll have coffee with people at various coffee shops in Los Angeles. And
that's pretty good though. It's a good life, Willert.
Well, I consider myself very lucky, and but I only have these choices because I'm sober. I would be in a fucking ball in my apartment. Actually, you know what? No, I wouldn't even have this
apartment. It's such a time
apartment.
suck.
I would still be, I probably wouldn't have even been with my ex either, because we're both sober. So if I was drinking and using, I don't even know what the situation would be. I just know that I would be small. My life would be very small. I would be very angry and sad. And I probably wouldn't be doing.
Well, and the health problems escalate. For me, towards the end, it was escalatingly. I I accepted my life was unmanageable for myself and where I wanted to be before I hit some of the classic rock bottoms. Like, I didn't lose my career per se, but I wasn't far away from being so drunk so much that I would have not been able to maintain what I was doing. So like, I think I would have lost my comedy career for sure in another 6 months, because the thing is, it gets more and more. It always just gets more and more. Mm-hmm. It's the nature of drugs. You need more later.
Well, yeah, and your body's just not able to process it. I mean, for me,
there's a point where you can't process that much drug. Yeah.
My health problems were all like results of me not being able to take care of myself, because I didn't binge drink enough in a way that, like, at least at the point I was at before I got sober, it wasn't that the alcohol, I'm sure it wasn't great, but like it wasn't that. It was like right. when we shot Kill Me Now, I got a abscess in my tonsil that I ignored for like the first week of us being there, because I got there early with you guys, and I was like, it's kind of sore. Whatever. Like, no, it's fine. And I would like get popsicles and like hold them on my tonsil, and then like we would be up at like 2:00 in the morning, and I'd be drinking like scalding hot soup to try and like lessen the pain of my tonsil. And I was like, well, I don't have a fever, because Travis's mom kept like putting a thermometer in my mouth, and it was, I don't have a fever. And then one morning I woke up and the whole bed was drenched in sweat. And I was like, I had to have had a fever. Like, there's no other thing. So they took, his mom took me to the urgent care, and I couldn't even speak because my tonsil was like pressing against my inner ear and my vocal cords, and I sounded very like tonal. I couldn't really talk. And the nurse came in and she took one look at me and she was like, we need to admit you to the emergency room. Like, and I was like, what? And then I was in the emergency room. They drained it. It was awful. And they gave me pain meds, which that was when I learned I was really into pain medication. And they sent me off with like antibiotics. And I had to take these really heavy antibiotics 3 times a week. And it's like, or 3 times a day. And when we were shooting overnight, and I would drink and then take these antibiotics. And because we were shooting overnights, I didn't ever really know like what time I needed to take the meds, but I didn't give a shit. I was just like, whatever.
Oh, nor did we. I was busy rewriting pages because we found out, like, instead of a lumber mill, we couldn't get that. We have a quarry now. You got to rewrite it. The bear's not going to be a bear trainer. It's going to be a guy in a suit. You got to rewrite it. And we would just be like, okay, so then so when do we need Willert? I don't know, like 6:30. Okay, we'll call Willert at 6:30 in the morning. We just were calling people whenever to get whatever. Like, we were just going. It was a crazy shoot.
But like, that's my alcoholism. Is like, I don't really care. Like, it doesn't matter. It's fine. It's whatever. Like, don't, and then my tonsils ended up being like an issue until I got sober, and then learned like, hey, you got bad tonsils and you need to be careful about like, what you eat and how you take care of your throat. And now it doesn't happen as much anymore, like throat issues. But but that was like where I was heading, where it was just like I didn't take care of anything pressing in my life.
So that's the greater symptom, right, of alcohol or your drug of choice becoming one of the most destructive aspects of addiction, is that it becomes your number one priority. And it's that doesn't leave space for you to prioritize things. That you'll find yourself wondering, how come I never, or like, I've had a toothache for months and why can't I find the time to go to the dentist? You spent all your time seeking your drug or being on the drug or recovering from having just been on the drug. It's a huge time suck. It will take up your entire life on a daily basis. It will fill as much space and time as it can.
Yeah.
If you have the propensity for it, for sure. And it's, So, okay, good. The whack-a-mole analogy is really good. I think that will benefit people out there and resonate with almost everyone. That it is a game of whack-a-mole, and even when people have 8 and some years sober. That is not to say, which I think it's important to hear when you're starting out in your sobriety journey, or at least it is for me. I still have to remind myself this because I'm an all or nothing thinker. Don't, like, let's say you're a few days sober. I think one of the easiest ways to slip is one bad thing happens and you're like, I'm sober and life is still hard. Fuck this.
Yeah.
Yeah. So as much as we want to encourage people, it's also to be reminded that just because your life is in shambles because you're deep in the pocket of big drug or whatever, sobriety doesn't then make you be like, now my life is enchanted magic where nothing ever goes wrong. But you can honestly say to yourself, and you should constantly remind yourself when bad stuff happens, I find, would this be easier or harder if I was also hungover or drunk or thinking, when can I drink next? Harder. It would be harder. The stress thing would be even more stressful and harder to cope with. So alcohol may temporarily provide the illusion of not thinking about it for a second because you're so drunk you can't think about it. But it definitely is easier in sobriety to deal with even the negatives, which will still come up.
Well, that's the thing is I know that drugs and alcohol will not solve my problems or make it better. It will only make it worse. And the thing about, alcoholism and drug addiction is it's like it's not the fourth drink, it's the first drink, right? Like once the first drink or drug happens, it sets off a chain of events where I don't know what the outcome is going to be, right? It's that first one. It's not the fourth one when I'm super fucked up. I don't get to the fourth if I don't drink the first. And so like that for me, I know that that's not an option. I mean, and this is a thing I've been through in sobriety. It's like, I'd rather kill myself than drink or use, like that was, and that means like I got to deal with some other shit. And then I, got medicated and like that has been great. But like, I know that drinking and using won't make my problems any better. It'll make everything worse.
Yeah. So what else I'm trying to think of things that will actually benefit the people who wrote in asking us to check in on our sobriety journeys. Now that you're this far into sobriety, do you find what keeps you from letting your guard down? How do you not fall into the pitfall of, or do you find it easy after 8 years to not go out?
Okay. It's not that
or
it's easy.
Be on or off the wagon, whichever the analogy is.
It's not that it's easy. But at this point in my life, in my recovery, I am surrounded by a community of people in recovery who I love and care about really deeply. And those are the people that I interact with on a daily basis. And so a lot of times, because I've created this like buffer of recovery around me, I don't even think that it's an option because like I'm surrounded by people who are, doing the work, have a work in a program, having a spiritual experience, all those sorts of things. We talk about recovery, like it's not all we talk about, but like it's such a part of my life that like it really doesn't even seem worth it to like go out because like what do I have if I'm out? Like I have a community that will still love me and welcome me and embrace me back in open arms, but it's like I don't know. And the thing is that because I have this community, when shit does get hard, when things get bad, I have people to talk to and people to like cradle me, right? And that's what the most important part to me about, recovery and sobriety is this fellowship of people who are all working towards the same thing, right? And like we don't all have our highs and lows at the same time. So like we're able to be there for each other when things get tough or when someone's going through something that is really hard. There are people who've been through the same thing and stayed sober, and they are, if you haven't dealt with it, you point it to someone who has, and like they show you that it's possible to do it without, relapsing. And so for me, it's like at this point in my sobriety, I don't think I've got it. I don't think anyone's got it, you know, like 100%. I'm by like the grace of a power greater than myself. I haven't drank in almost 9 years. I didn't do that, you know, something else did that. But like, for me, sobriety is joyous. I'm far happier as a sober woman than I was as a woman who was drinking. My life is way less complicated. It's full of a lot more joy. It's full of a lot of expansion. And so for me, it's just the better option for me in my life at the moment, you know? I don't know.
Was it a hurdle for you in the beginning, the feeling that, because I don't like to be told what to do or told that I'm doing something wrong because it implies that I fucked up again, or like I disappointed yet another person, or I can't do life right. No matter how hard I try, I can't fucking, like, I can't even whatever. So I was a secret drinker and I didn't want to be helped by a community. I wanted to just stop drinking myself because I try so hard. You know what I mean? And I think you're pointing to a key thing, which is that everyone, it's just universally true that you'll have a better chance, statistically, like an order of magnitude better chance of quitting your drug or alcohol with a community involved supporting you. It took a lot for me, and it's still something I struggle with, to not view that as a weakness. So I want people out there who that resonates with to hear that if someone's trying to help you, it's okay. Then they are trying to help you, because I don't know, there's such a thing as, and I've been in one, you know, a toxic relationship where someone's trying to mold your behavior for their own ends, but it's not the same thing. Like, I have to remind myself of that, Jack Nicholson's line from As Good as It Gets, you make me want to be a better man. Because like, I'm with my current partner and I find myself often thinking, wait a minute, as if this is a problem. Am I only not drinking because I'm with someone and like they would be so disappointed and it would ruin my life and my life would go off the rails and I'd be alone and die in the gutter? Is that the only reason I'm not drinking? And I'm like, yeah, that's a bunch of reasons not to drink.
That's
Is
enough
that not
of a
good
reason.
Yeah. And I'm like, well, I don't want to be contingent on just because I don't want to not drink just so people respect me. I don't want to not drink just so I don't end up in the gut. And it's like, no, these are good reasons to not drink, and use them. It's fine. It's like there's this bizarre addiction to the platonic ideal of, I just want to force myself to think my way through it. I spent many years trying to think my way out of, like, damn, I really want to not drink, but every night I drink a whole bottle of Jameson. I'll keep thinking about it. I'll figure it out. You know what I mean? Like, and that was like 6 years of my drinking.
Yeah, you're like, interesting.
Interesting how I keep drinking every night, even though I wake up in the morning and think I don't want to. Interesting. Yeah. So you got to just dive in, and you don't have to, but I find that if you reach out to community, like, I think even whatever, there's statistics of like, yes, there exists the person who was like, I woke up one day and just had a spiritual shot out of the blue and never touched the stuff again. Like that cartoon where you see a ghost and you throw the alcohol away. And it's like, good, I'm great. But man, do not try to hold yourself to that standard.
Nope.
I think useful, actionable advice we can give is that get yourself involved in a community. Get over the shame component as much as possible, because that's why a community of other people who are alcoholics is so useful. You don't have to be like, and I'm admitting this to someone who does have discipline. Oh my God, they must think I'm such a piece of shit. It's like, I go to AA meetings, and in those meetings, you'll hear people who are like, so there I was, you know, with an 8-ball of heroin and a shotgun in my mouth. And you're like, okay, this person's not going to judge me if I explain all my horrible shit.
That's the thing too, is that like, we're talking in a general way, but I think that like, the petulant thing of not wanting to be told what to do, like, the reason I don't feel that when I reach out to the fellowship of other people in recovery is because they know what the fuck I'm going through. Like, it's not some purist, driven snow person telling me like, don't do this and don't do that and you have to do this. It's a person who fucking got shit-faced and like laid down in the middle of a parking lot in front of a whole bunch of people on a Saturday night, you know, suggesting that maybe I try this. Literally, it's every, you know, and I know there's like different vibes of like recovery. Some people are more like, do this, 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 and this, and whatever. But most of the like things that people tell me in recovery are like, I went through X. I did this. It helped. Maybe you do that. Nobody goes like, you gotta do this. It's like...
Oh, see, my problem is and in case other people out there are like this, I take everything as gospel that anyone tells me, or I have a strong propensity to... if I were a dog, I would roll over and show you my belly very quickly.
Yeah.
Like, I want the approval of whoever I'm interacting with. I don't know. I just view life as transactional, or at least that's my instinct. And I want... So, like, a huge hurdle for me, and I was just, like, privileged to be speaking to a group of addicts and had this realization while I was talking of, like, I don't know when it happened, but I somehow at some point took control of those rules for myself and decided that people who were trying to help me were not trying to be prescriptive. They were just telling me things that happened to work for them, and that I was allowed to look at that as like you might look at a painting or an assemblage of items and get from it whatever I get from it. So the realization that my sobriety journey is not, even though we just happened to discover, or I have happened to discover, that my sobriety journey has many, many, many delightful little details that you find out, oh, I thought that was just me, but everyone goes through that. Or like a lot of it is very generic or like trope driven, but that doesn't mean that my sobriety journey isn't unique to me, and that's also okay. I don't have to, well, you quit in this way on this date. You use the app to count your days. For example, I just remember what month I'm in. I couldn't tell you the exact day. And I know some sober people who are like, you don't know the day? You've lost track of, that's the first step towards losing track of yourself and your soul, and then the first drink. And I'm like, I used to worry, oh, they're right. And now I'm like, no, I'll be fine. I have a Post-it note with how many months it's been. That works for me.
Yeah.
It works for me. That's the bottom line.
And it's all continually evolving and changing. So like you might get to a point where you're like, I wonder what the actual day is. Just like for your own edification, if you
look
go
it
back
up and start remembering,
and you figure it
yeah.
out or whatever. But it's like, I understand that thing of wanting to just like, I don't want to be black and white about anything. I just want to learn how to exist in this gray area, because I am a person who believes in absolutes, right? It's one or the other. And the truth is it's not. It's most of the time gray in the middle. And like the only absolute for me in my sobriety is don't drink or use no matter what. That's the only like hard and fast rule for myself. But the truth is I don't have to make that decision really ever, because I'm like taking the time to cultivate my sobriety and my sober life.
It takes some maintenance for the rest of your life, but it becomes second nature, and the maintenance does lessen and lessen, right? But I also think it's important to say in the same breath that it is like going to the gym. I don't think I could just forget about it, set it, and forget it. I would eventually run afoul of a drink, and I wouldn't have my guard up.
Yep.
You know?
Yeah. And I mean, that I still every once in a while will have a thought, like I was walking from my car at my parking spot up to my apartment. It's super hot in LA right now. And I had a thought of like, man, margarita would be so good right now. Now on the rocks and salt on the rim. You know, like, and I still have those thoughts. Like, I'm an alcoholic. Of course I'm going to have those thoughts. But it's funny because I like think it, and then I go like, yeah, but like, what, is it worth it? It's just always, is it worth it, that one margarita Because once the margarita happens,
Right.
then I don't know what the fuck is going to happen. And like, I don't know. It's a process, right? Like, but because my sober life is so, like, I've cultivated a sober life that is so important to me, that thought comes into my head and I go like, fuck no. But that's only because I've done the active work consistently every day to have a sober life that is important to me. That's more important than the drink or the drug.
That's another thing is I do find that it's easier to cultivate a positive behavior than just cold turkey a negative behavior and leave a void in its place.
Mm-hmm.
So this is just a practical tip, but like as much as you can. And then there's the whole, of course, depression makes this its own challenge, or like various mental challenges make this their own challenge. But as you can, and if you can, find ways to engage in community, or even in, if it's smaller scale and you can't deal with people yet, a new hobby, something you've always wanted to do, readings, a book you've always meant to read if you're a reader, whatever. I did and do find that keeping myself busy, and in fact, like there's times where I think to myself, and it could be totally valid, that it's just another game of whack-a-mole, and now I'm addicted to being engaged in activity that I find enriching. But then I of course immediately think, well, that's much better than the thing you were addicted to before. That's literally whatever they say, high on life or what have you, right? You've managed to become addicted to just the normal routine of doing things. At least you're there, I guess. But there's a part of me that always is like, I wonder if I'll ever be the Buddha though, where you could say like, I could take or leave everything. And it's like, well, you will definitely, because one day you'll be a corpse and you could take and leave everything. But you know, I don't know. Part of me yearns. I still see the journey as, you say progress, not perfection. And it's so funny. I have a little voice in me that's like, yeah, but maybe someday, Mr. Homer, like we'll get there. We'll reach perfection. How cool would that be?
But see, here's
you
the
become
thing.
perfectly spiritual, like to the point where you could just walk into a war and be like, hey guys, don't. And everyone would be like, peace fills me because of how spiritually whole this person is. Yeah. I want to be that guy.
But see, like, progress, not perfection. You're assuming progress is like piddling along. But you can have massive progress. You can shoot for as close to perfect as you can. What is that fucking shoot an arrow into the sky or at the moon, and if you don't make it, you land amongst whatever that fucking bullshit saying is?
Because, yeah, it says shoot for the moon and you'll land among the stars. But the stars are further away from the moon.
I know.
So it should be shoot for the stars and you'll hit the moon.
Yes. Whatever.
Shoot for the stars and you'll hit the moon. All right, there we go.
It's a dumb saying, and I agree. But, like, the result of that is still going to be way better than not trying at all. You know, and I think about if we're getting really, like, saying-y, I always think of the Wayne Gretzky quote, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take, right? Mm-hmm. And it's very easy for me still. What I'm grappling with at this period in my life is like, fear keeps me very small. And that's the way in which my alcoholism will manifest itself today, is like fear, self-centered fear that I'm not going to get what I want, that I'm going to lose what I have. And that was the bottom that I hit. Was my life was very small and I was full of a lot of fear. And what I'm realizing is that fear and uncomfortability feel very similar. In that it's just like someone tear my fucking skin off. That's how I feel when I'm really afraid and also when I'm uncomfortable. But the thing is that uncomfortability can lead to growth. It can lead to, expansion. It can lead to new things, new experiences, new opportunities. Fear doesn't lead anywhere. Fear keeps me where I'm at. Fear tries to keep me safe by keeping me small. And being incredibly uncomfortable right now at this moment in my life, you know, I'm newly out as a lesbian. I am learning about what sexuality is, what, you know, like what do I actually want? What am I actually into? I went on Field, which is this like, queer friendly, E&M friendly app, dating app. And there are so many acronyms and I don't even fucking know what anything is, but I'm like, wow, someone can have this individualized a sexual experience, a sexual identity. Wow. Like, I don't, I don't know where I stand in that, but I'm here, and like, I'm making art and uncomfortable all the fucking time as I'm figuring out what my process is, what I like, what I make, who I want, what I want to put in this. It's so uncomfortable because I'm like, I've never done this before, but I'm going somewhere. It's leading me to another phase of my experience as a human being, right? Whereas fear, I just expect more of the same.
Fear is the mind killer. Let's just say it.
I stay in this place where I know exactly what's going to happen if I do X, Y, and Z because I've done it before. And I'm learning I would much rather be uncomfortable than be afraid. And that's something I think that sobriety has taught me is doing new stuff is super uncomfortable. Of course you don't know what the fuck's going to happen because you've never done it before. Why would I know? The prayer I say more often than not over and over again. God, please set aside everything I think I know for an open mind and a new experience. And, I would say that over and over and over again. And then I'd have a new experience and be terrified. And it's like, but you're not going to know how to deal with a new experience. It's a new experience. You've never dealt with it before. So like, going to be uncomfortable and weird, but that's part of it. It's not bad.
Yeah.
It's just uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's like raising your hand at the show and getting called up on stage. That feeling of, but nothing bad is going to happen to you. It's a show, or like you're part of the game now.
You're going to get hypnotized.
But it can be difficult to take that first step.
In front of all the people at the fair, and it'll be fine.
Exactly. It'll be fine. You'll have a story to tell. That's what it's all about.
Yeah.
I feel like we've told a bit of a story, and that was a very inspirational note to wrap up on. Do you have other pressing inspirational monologues from your journey in sobriety right now?
I mean, I don't know. I'm just excited to get closer to who I am. Before
for sure.
Because
Congratulations.
drugs and alcohol obscured my life as a human, and it kept me small, and it kept me angry, and it kept me lonely, and I still had glimpses of connection and of love and of friendship, but my life is whole and full. And my favorite line in the big book is, this is a process that allows for limitless expansion. And that's what I want. Mm-hmm. I want limitless expansion. I want to try all the things I want to try. I want to meet all these people just that I haven't met yet. I want to figure out what weird sex stuff I'm into. Like, I want to know. I want to know all of myself better. And for so long, I was trying not to know myself. I was trying to be someone I wasn't. And I was trying to tamp down all the parts of me that are not anybody else but me. And I don't want to do that anymore. It's not interesting to me.
It's awesome. Well, for me, there's also a very practical dimension. I was using drugs and alcohol to try and quiet the chattering voices in my mind and have more frequent moments of quiet presence where I actually feel like I am aware of the life force that's flowing through me and like appreciate being part of the universe and being alive rather than thinking about the future or the past. And so I'll just report to people that resonates with, that I'm more able to do that in sobriety than with drugs or alcohol, even though drugs or alcohol are like, they're like a hammer. Like they would shut yes, the voices in my head would stop chattering for a minute if I got drunk enough. But, well, first of all, you barely encode the memory. So it's not like a moment of presence that you can really appreciate or carry with you or gain sustenance from at any other time in your life. And it's fleeting, and you wake up and you're hungover, and eventually it goes away and you can never get it back no matter how much you drink or do. So literally, I have found, and I know meditation doesn't work for everyone, but I've just started meditating every day, and that has given me a little more control. Also, finding the right meds has given me more control.
I mean, honestly, for me,
voices.
I had to get sober to know that I was clinically depressed and needed to be medicated. Some people have the opposite experience where they need to get their psychiatric self in order to get sober. Everybody's journey is different. But like, I mean, how much of that chatter was fucking ADHD that you were undiagnosed? Like, you don't really know, because when you throw a bunch of alcohol and drink on top of stuff, it doesn't help the situation. It just kind of obscures it.
And it will sometimes fleetingly give you a fake version of that connectedness feeling I was describing, which is what's so beguiling about it and baffling and powerful. But, yeah, just confirming that in sobriety, if you work at it, you can impel that state in your brain. Like now I can sit and look at a tree and take deep breaths, and I got to say, it feels like being high. like if I meditate, I mean, maybe I'm just feeding the addiction again, but at least it's one that's not going to destroy my body and brain. It's like I sit there meditating and I feel good and happy and like, whoa, this feels good. And I'm like, is this bad that I feel good? And I'm like, no, you're just breathing deeply. This is allowed.
Your brain's getting oxygen to parts of it that probably weren't with shallow breaths, and your brain feels more alive. I always think of the fact that like, I did a low carb diet for like 2 years when I was probably 3 or 4 years sober. And I ate rice, and I was mortified. I was terrified. I was like, oh my God, I can't. I ate rice. And I called my sponsor, and she goes, Katie, rice is not whiskey, you know? And like, I have to just like,
well, you worry about the ism. You're like, but the ism made me eat the rice. Like the fact that I'm an alcoholic.
But the thing is like the ism will always exist, right? And if I'm doing the work, you know, spiritually, mentally, with my community to stay buffered, then those isms don't rear their head as bad as they sometimes do, but sometimes they do. And I just have to ride it out, because I will hit a bottom. I always do. I'll hit a point where I'm smoking and I'm like, nah, I don't want to do this anymore. And it doesn't feel good, you know, and then I take action, contrary action, right? And like, you know, if you're trying to kick alcohol, eat a lot of chocolate, because it has a similar effect on your body, and chocolate is not whiskey. That's my piece of advice. If you're trying to quit drinking, if you're trying to quit drinking, eat chocolate when you have a craving. They say it in the big book. I fully believe you need to get past that really tangible physical craving.
But Katie, our dependence on cacao beans is denuding the rainforest. Everything is connected to everything.
Yeah.
Let's not get into all of that right now.
It 100% is. But honestly, like, I can't be of service to the world and help try and save it if I'm a fucking drunk in the gutter. I can't do it. So it's like, take care of, you know, put the mask on yourself, get settled, and then work on, you know, being a positive influence in your sphere.
In your ecosystem. Yeah. Do what you can with what you have right now, because I I'm being facetious, but
But that loop,
that voice
that
in me,
loop will
that
keep
comic that's
people-
like, and yet you are a part of society. And yet you eat chocolate, and you live on the grid. Like the very nature that you use electricity is damaging,
But that
to
loop
some degree.
will
But anyway.
like my brain as an alcoholic will use anything to keep me trapped in that little fear place, right? And I know a lot of people who that sort of thinking, that cyclical,
That's the excuse, yeah.
will keep a person like, why even try? And it's because you should be here. You're here. You should stay here. And like, we want to know what you have to offer, but drugs and alcohol obscure that. And, like, if you get out of that hole, if you get out of the pit, you can be a positive influence on this world, and in whatever scale that may be.
And we're getting out of the pit right damn now. Thank you so much, Katie. Where can people find your phenomenal, like the new direction you've gone? Where's your art at? Where can people see how you're evolving right now?
Well, so right now in my art hibernation, I'm not allowed to post my art on social media. It's just about creating it. But
that's the self-imposed.
Yeah, because I was
caveat. Gotcha. Yeah.
I need to be able to make art that makes me happy, and then if other people like it, that's great. But that I'll start posting my work come December 1st. But please, please, please. Follow me on @Katie Willert Art, KatieWillertArt on Instagram, and then I also have a Twitter, and it's KatieWillertArt.com. And then if you just want to follow me being, gay, and just being me, @KAWillert on Instagram and Twitter.
But she won't be responsive right now because of all the things she said about social media diet. But later, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, take your best shot.
Follow now. I'll be back in a healthier.
Follow now. She'll be back.
Yeah.
And we'll be back again with another Tales from the Pit when indeed I find a compelling reason to put one together. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
This has been a Small Beans endeavor. We're a bunch of pals who make podcasts, sketches, music, web series, and movies. The Beans always have new ideas percolating, so make sure to check us out at patreon.com/smallbeans. That's patreon.com/smallbeans, where you can browse all of our current and past content, see what we've got planned in the future, and learn how your support can help the small beans grow into huge, giant monster beans. If you enjoyed this content module, please like, rate, subscribe, or tell a friend about us. We love you!